I think we could give him at least a B plus, maybe higher. He got 200 million doses into people's arms, and he promised only 100 million. 50% are vaccinated with one dose at least, and 30% with two doses. And most economic forecasts are giving him very good marks in forecasting growth in the economy. So I would give him at least a B plus, maybe an A minus.
Okay, well, before we get to the economy, I mean, the vaccination rollout was his biggest challenge once he was elected, wasn't it, to get on top of the pandemic?
Yes, it certainly was. And I think he's met that challenge very well with organization, with resources, and that the numbers show it actually. And I believe the U.S. is like the third advanced country in the vaccination rates in the world after Israel and the U.K. So I think definitely it was his biggest challenge, but he's met it pretty well.
And now on to the economy. I mean, the stock market has roared to life, and employment has bounced back in a big way as well. So, in that sense, what shape do you put the economy in at the moment?
Well, it had a long ways to pick up because it was so far back with COVID. Not only that, but the slow growth after the Great Recession and also COVID is really set it back. But I think it's doing very well in terms of the initial stages because this massive spending that Biden is proposing and the coronavirus relief package put a lot of money into people's hands, and they're using that money not just to buy stocks, some of them, but many of them are using to pay their rent and their bills and their house payments. That's stimulating more demand in the economy. So people are looking at this, even on Wall Street, and saying, I think we're going to have some pretty good growth here with all this investment.
Is there a danger, though, that the economy overheats here with all of these trillions of dollars that have been pumped into the market, and you run the risk of superinflation?
There's always that danger, of course, superinflation with more dollars in the circulation. But if productivity keeps going up, that's the key. With increased productivity and low interest rates, inflation stays stable. And this investment is so important because of the infrastructure needs. The American Society of Civil Engineers said that $2.6 trillion was needed in investment just to bring up the American infrastructure to par. And he's going to go even further with it, going with even green technologies and new jobs for people. A lot of people left behind in the economy are going to have new jobs at this point with those proposals, in my view.
And when it comes to race healing a divided America, I mean, this is something that every president has to deal with and ultimately fails at because the problem is too large. But what do you make of the approach that he's taken so far? It feels like the pressure has come out of it a little bit.
Yes, I think it's improved considerably because of his approach and his actions. I mean, he was the first vice president the first African-American president. Now he's nominated and has in place an African-American, Asian-American vice president of his own. And that's very symbolic, but very important for how people see race relations. And it's about the George Floyd killing and shooting, and is urging Senate to pass the George Floyd Justice Act and those kinds of things. All of that's helping Biden have high marks when it comes to race relations in actions and in words and in his ideas as well.
Yeah, and just finally, well, he's got a speech coming up in the state of Georgia. That's where he's spending his 100th day today, a state that he managed to flip during the election. But what'd you make of his speech yesterday? It was very different to ones that have appeared in the past, notably by the audience.
It certainly was. In fact, with just 200 people there rather than 1,500, there was room for 4 or 5 seats between people. It wasn't as intense. The applause, for example, was there, but it wasn't as loud because fewer people there. And 2 women behind him, the vice president and the speaker of the House, first time in history. That was remarkable. His speech had very solid offerings in it to expand the infrastructure, to bring in a America Families Plan, which would expand social programs where we need childcare, daycare, elder care, to release the productive energies of working Americans so they won't have to worry about their children or the elderly when they're working. So that's really important, those kinds of offerings.